Good morning and welcome. This is an interesting time of the year, isn't it? Sadly, summer's beginning to come to an end. Good news is the kids are back in school. And for you fantasy leaguers, you know that the NFL is right around the corner, right? Given the important role that technology has in creating and actually solving security concerns, we thought it was critical to bring the series here to Silicon Valley. And in fact, this is our third year here at the Four Seasons in Palo Alto, and it's our 10th event overall. And really, thanks to you and to the others who attend, the series has become a respected place to discuss all things, many things security, but also to highlight innovation, and not just in technology, but in management strategy. And then, of course, network with good people. Now, for those of you who don't know the Chertoff Group, we are an advisory and merchant bank focused exclusively on the security sector. And we apply our insights into technology, into threat, and into policy to help our clients three ways: improve their resiliency to risk, build competitive advantage, and accelerate growth. Now, we're headquartered in Washington, D.C., and I'm thrilled that our two co-founders and managing principals, Secretary Chertoff, Chad Sweet, you get a hand, they're here, and I know these guys are looking forward to meeting all of you. And I'm based in Menlo Park, just up the street, where we manage and lead our technology sector work. So let's go ahead and take a look at the agenda. If we can move this, that's never easy for me. So the theme today is security in the boardroom. And in a few minutes, I'm going to give a summary of a study we did earlier in the year to really dig into some of the core issues around that topic. And then we're going to start with two panels. The first one is around governance, measurement, and response, really the fundamentals of a security risk program. Then we're going to tackle AI, something that has a heck of a lot of promise in the security context, where we're going to hope to frame that and perhaps even demystify it. Then we're going to take a quick networking break, and then when we come back, the keynote conversation between two experienced board members, Michael Chertoff and Steve Daly, the CEO of Ivanti. And then when we break for lunch, I'd encourage everybody to take a look at the program, and we're using this birds of a feather, and pick a topic of interest. In the past, it's proven to be one of the most popular parts of the day. And then when we come back in the afternoon, our panel will be focused on cryptocurrency and distributed ledgers, and again, trying to bring a security context around that. And then we have two spotlight sessions. Think of these as mini TED Talks, if you will. And the focus this year is going to be on creativity and out-of-the-box thinking. And if we go up here to the second page, if I could move this along, if you look at that second spotlight, as a longtime Warrior fan, I am thrilled that everybody is going to leave the day infused with your Warrior spirit. And particularly for you Cavalier and Celtic fans, this is very good for you. This is very, very good for you, okay? That trade notwithstanding, this is very good for you. And then we're going to wrap up. Reggie's going to get me for that one after the day, I can tell. And then we're going to wrap up. Secretary Chertoff has a call to action, which I think if anybody has heard him give that theme in that speech, it's a great way to finish. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at. Next, what I'd like to do is a warm thank you to our sponsors. Truly, this does not happen without you. So thank you, IASD, Beyond Trust, Ivanti, SailPoint, Lumina, and Nehemiah. And then also to our event partners. Can you guys go back a slide? I'm terrible with this. So to our partners, first on the media side, CyberWire, and then SiliconANGLE and theCUBE. So while we're in here in the session, we're going to be live streaming podcasts that is going to be distributed over the SiliconANGLE. So you'll see many of the speakers there. We think that's going to be a really cool extra touch. And then to our event partners, first, Tenfold Communications and our good friend Susan Trainer, and then Cynet and our close partner Robert Rodriguez, and then a special shout out to the guys at Innovative Capital Ventures, in particular Dave Wright and my longtime friend Dan Gaddy. You guys have been fantastic. Really, really appreciate the support. Okay, just a couple of final thoughts. We will have Q&A after the sessions, and for those of you interested in sharing the conversation, the hashtag is going to be all around you. And then I appreciate in advance if you can turn your phasers to stun. That would make it a little bit easier for the day. Okay, so now the key question for the day. It's no doubt that cybersecurity is in the news. I mean, just the last couple months with Petya and not Petya, look at some of the things that have happened, right? FedEx had to report, quote unquote, significant damage. Merck actually restated their 2017 GAAP EPS. And then a candy manufacturer in the Midwest, Mendelez, actually had to report a 3% reduction in their second quarter growth. I mean, that is a wow. That's a big wow. So clearly, security is a real big issue, and it's a top business risk. But is it really a part of the boardroom conversation? And is it a boardroom competency? And those are some of the questions that we set out at the firm to really deeply understand. So a few months ago, we said, well, let's start to organize our thoughts around that. We're missing a slide, but that's okay. We started to organize our thoughts around that and said, first, let's sort of think about how boards think. And there's three general areas we said that boards are concerned with. The first is risk management. And when it comes to risk management, that can be financial risk, operational risk, reputational risk, and of course, cyber risk. And when it comes down to thinking about risk as board members, because many of us in the room here sit on boards, it's, hey, what can we accept? What are we okay with? What do we want to mitigate? And what might we transfer through insurance? And then the second area that boards care about is value creation. And that's that stew of the market opportunity, it's the team, and then ultimately it's about execution, right? And then the third thing that boards care about is metrics, right? Do we have are we measuring the right things? Do we know that we're on course? So we set that with a frame and then said, now what we want to do is let's go have extensive interviews with people who are sitting at the table. So we had generally hour-plus interviews with 100 execs, and 40% of them were responding in their role as a board director. Nearly 50% were responding in their role as a C-level executive or line of business head, and then the balance were coming from roles in IT or security, okay? And this was an international study, covered 3 continents, 12 industries, large companies, Fortune 500, and then down into some smaller private companies. So what did we find? Sort of 2 themes that I'd like to talk about. So the first one is what we call the cyber knowledge gap. And this, to me, was really significant that two-thirds of the respondents said they have a gap between what they feel their current knowledge on cyber is and then what they feel it should be to really do their job. Then when we asked them, how do you guys feel about the media coverage? And they said, probably too technical, and it would be a lot more effective if there was more focus on the cure and what we actually need to do. And I thought that was actually most distressing was several of the directors in particular said, you know, we're getting desensitized to this issue. And we don't want to admit it, but we're really concerned that we may just be kicking the can down the road. Now, the next major thing that we found, we've really started calling this a tale of 2 cyber cities. So on the left is the good news. And this is public, large Fortune 500 companies in the US, generally in what would be called critical infrastructure, healthcare, finance, tech, and other areas. And here was a good story. Directors said, yeah, we're comfortable with security. It's regularly discussed at the board. It has been for some time. And it really now is more woven into a risk management discussion. And in some cases, it's actually now linked into things like our value creation strategies, things like digital transformation. And then we said, well, how do you learn? How do you get smart on this? And we heard a couple of themes that came through. One was we learn from sitting on other boards, and we talk to other directors. So talking to directors, sitting on boards is really helpful. The second thing that we really learn from is our CISOs, in particular when they give us stories and examples that we can sort of figure this out and put it into context. Now, that also kind of leads to the last piece on that it's probably no surprise that in this category, these firms all routinely had tenured, experienced CISOs who had regular access and interaction with board members. Okay, the right side of the page. Everybody else. The story's not as good. Generally, security is not on the board at all. It's not on the board agenda. And if it is, it's a technical discussion, it's reactive, and it's very technical. And then if you began to ask the directors, do you have a CISO or do you know who that person is? In far too many cases, they said, I'm not sure, but I know that person hasn't spoken to the board. So it's like, yikes, okay? So we thought, well, what can we do about it? Where can we help? And we said, there's a lot of focus on the CISOs, but there's not a lot of focus on board directors to help us sort of go to the next stage. And so we said, perhaps we can create a blueprint. And so we created a blueprint, 7 building blocks into 3 stages. And it's divided on who takes the lead. So the first is management-led. And this is really the fundamental blocks of a good risk management program, okay? Governance, measurement, response. The second is board-led. And this is about culture and people. And then the one on the right is more of a shared responsibility. And this is really about awareness about the world around us. Okay, eject that person quickly. So if you double click on this, there's actually some real instructive questions that begin to pop through that I think it would be really useful for board members to come ask those questions, review them, and best even document them. So if we take a look at governance, it's things like, have we prioritized our risks? Do we know what's acceptable? What's out of bounds? Do we know what our crown jewels are and where and how that data moves? Okay? When it comes down to measurement, it's do we know what success looks like? And are we confident that the proper controls are in place, they're uniformly shared, and they're understood? And then the final one in response is pretty simple. I mean, as directors, do we have confidence that we can do the job, that we can react? Can management quickly identify and respond to risk? Then let's move to the second area. Okay, this is where the board should be taking the leadership, and this is about culture and people. And on culture, it starts with this. Do we have a CEO-led, cyber-conscious culture that values and respects security? Okay? Are we good stakeholders of the data that we collect about customers and the market? And then finally on this is there a linkage between our growth strategies and security? There should be, okay? Then if we move down to people, it's really a couple things. The first one is, do we have confidence in the senior staff that's leading this program? And then the second area is, do we have the right compensation plans, the right incentive plans to reward the behavior that we're looking for, and also to retain and grow these valuable staff members? Okay, then the final area is more of a shared responsibility, and it starts with policy and regulation. Are we aware of what's coming down the pike that could impact our sector, our industry, or even the company? And then make it more personal, it's like, hey, can we and should we be part of this dialogue? Should we shape and move this agenda? And then what they're really kind of getting to is, have we thought through the impact of these issues on our brand and our growth? Then the final area is about foresight. And really what we really mean here, we kind of struggled with the word. This is about critical thinking. Can we see around corners? Do we have a healthy appreciation for what we don't know? And then because of the importance of this program, do we audit? Do we use third parties to audit the program? And then do we trust these third parties to challenge our way of thinking? So that's it. That's just a little bit of insight into the blueprint we think would be helpful. And then in wrapping up on this, we said that, well, what does this road or path to a more effective security board conversation look like? It says, well, first, directors, we recommend use the blueprint. And then for directors and management, keep these 3 principles in mind. First one is to keep it relevant. And for the CISOs in the room, do not underestimate the power of stories and of cases that can really educate the board and bring them along to where you want to be. Okay? The second thing is make it risk-based. This is a language the boards are cool with, they understand it, and you're going to get better results that way. And then the last thing is just remember roles, right? Keep it role-focused. Where do you think management should be leading, and then where are you looking for the board to take a leadership and a more active role? So that's it. That's the results of what we found. We hope this is useful. Would love to get feedback from everybody. And at this point, I would just say, let's have an awesome, awesome day. And it's a real honor to introduce my good buddy and the moderator of the next panel, Mark Weatherford. Thank you.